Right, I'm going to upset a lot of people with this one because I'm going to go against the grain and just quite simply say that I do not recommend SMGs on strikers. Despite what everyone else is saying and what all the other builds you're seeing and the insane RPMs and the ridiculous DPS, I do not recommend SMGs on strikers. There are two very, very unique reasons for this. First reason being that in order to get the maximum amount of DPS, you compromise a lot, which an SMG cannot typically handle by itself. Due to the nature of you having to be close range, you will typically have to utilize some form of survivability mechanic by use of Intimidate and Bloodsucker or Intimidate and Memento. I've even tried Perfect Clutch. They all work perfectly fine due to the rate in which you can kill things. I would actually argue that Clutch may have made a slight comeback because of strikers. That being said, in order to utilise a lot of these things, you have to sacrifice red cores, weapon damage, which then means you need to go to using armour cores, which then depletes your overall DPS even more. Can you still get ridiculously high DPS using blue cores? Yes, you can. I believe the highest I have seen so far is about 23 million DPS with 4 blue cores, Bloodsucker and Intimidate. So Intimidate is kind of back on the map. However, like I said, with all this being said, you are compromising the overall output of the weapon just to try and put blue cores in. At this point, you'd be better off just running an AR, having a little bit of range, and being able to kill things a bit more comfortably without having to put yourself directly in danger. The second reason is a bit more convoluted, and it simply comes down to the simple fact of Hunter's Fury. Now, the only reason I really mention this is because one of the big dislikes I have with strikers, despite the fact that I'm running strikers 9 times out of 10 at the moment because it is fun, I do enjoy it, this is the best place it has ever been. When it comes to SMGs and the overall power and utility of a build, nothing compares to Hunter's Fury. Strikers, as I have said in many videos in the past, strikers lacks utility. Even with high-end DPS builds, you're typically able to add in some form of utility somewhere. We have plenty of options that allow us to compromise one piece just to slot in one more piece of utility, whatever that may be. Strikers doesn't allow you to do this at all. And being that you're going to be fighting in close proximity, Hunter's Fury is still kind of the best bet. You will sacrifice DPS, and for most of the builds that I have mock-ups of, you're only really going to lose about 15% in DPS, which in terms of DPS that does seem like a lot. But the overall effect that you will get with Hunter's Fury is going to be so much better. One, you're less inclined to push and rush the enemies because you're able to CC them simultaneously while doing DPS. 2, if you do take damage, not a drama, you're doing enough damage anyway to kill things quickly and effectively enough that when you do get a kill, you get 20% armor and 100% of your health. This is me running Jefferson Trade Center. I have sped it up because we got a bit to go through. So yeah, but this is with a strikers build. I'm honestly not trying to die despite the way how it may look. I am running a Lady Death Strikers build. I will put the build I'm running up on screen now. Now with this, the issue quite simply is the simple fact of, in order to actually utilise some form of survivability, I am running Memento for the kill confirmed trophies, bit of armour regen as well as some over armour. I'm also running a Cheska with Intimidate. Intimidate does seem to be the best way to go with an SMG build, so Bloodsucker coming in. Everything is crit chance, crit damage, all Strikers pieces are crit damage, and I am running Lady Death because that is going to give us the most bang for our buck on an SMG. Other useful SMGs will be the Vector SBR .45 ACP or the replica, and then we have the MP5s. I would suggest the MP5 ST replica potentially, or the MP5N. The only reason I would suggest these is they have a long barrel, which means if you do want to go with spot up flatline, it is an option for you. However, like I said, typically bang for your buck, although it's going to be difficult to manage, your best bet will be Lady Death. In terms of pure RPM, weapon go burr, it will be the Vector, and in terms of build utility, it will be the MP5. Now, with all this being said, and despite the fact that I have said that I do not recommend SMGs on the Strikers, this is not to say that Strikers with an SMG is not a worthwhile venture. It is. It absolutely is. You can do some nutty DPS. The highest that I have been able to do so far is about 25 million in calculable spreadsheets with varying different builds. The highest I can really get with Hunter's Fury is 16 million. So there is a clear and obvious DPS difference. However, getting 25 million DPS on an SMG Strikers is 1, overkill, 2, completely reliant on having 200 stacks, and 3, offers you zero utility. The only utility you could potentially make up would be not using the chest and backpack of Strikers and going for something along the lines of Bloodsucker Intimidate. This is a very worthwhile adventure. You can that way get some utility out of it, but you don't really gain as much as you might think. Whereas doing the exact same thing, Intimidate Bloodsucker with 4-piece Hunter's Fury, not only do you have a direct multiplier to increase your damage, a way in which you're steadily able to gain bonus armor, you'll also be able to regen 20% of your armor, 100% of your health, and you can CC by use of the disorient mechanic of Hunter's Fury other enemies in close proximity. This helps prevent you from being completely and utterly overwhelmed. So, in terms of their usefulness, really, because that's kind of what it comes down to. If you want big burr, Strikers definitely does win. However, I found myself in far too many situations like this, where I can't get close enough to do the damage I need because there's just too much going on, and I'm unable to maintain my optimal positioning because things are just moving around too much, and I can't maintain my overall capability to do damage because dying is a thing, and once you die you need to regain stacks. Hunter's Fury alleviates all of this. This is what I'm running. Okay, it's just a standard Hunter's Fury build. I've got Sokolov with Intimidate and a Memento backpack, and yeah, this now just becomes a walk in the park. Again, it has been sped up. I do apologise. It probably looks quite weird, but like I said, I've got a lot to go through, and yeah. Anyway, these are the two builds that I had running in this video. As you can see, one is 12 million DPS, which was the Strikers. The Hunter's Fury is 10 million DPS. If we simply just remove the RPM, because that's basically where all the damage is coming from, the drop down for the Strikers build becomes ridiculous. It's not even like 70% of the Hunter's Fury one. But just the overall performance of Hunter's Fury, despite the DPS, allows you to do so much more. I'm just casually cakewalking through this, admittedly at ×3 speed, but it's more than worthwhile. Then there's this. Now sadly that build that has 19mm DPS, I'm not going to share it. Not because I've made it up, but it's not my build to show. And because I didn't come up with it or figure it out or whatever, I'm not going to show it. However, that one that hits 16mm just below it is a Hunter's Fury build, which you can see here. It's not that hard. You're not that far behind on DPS, although the gap does seem pretty large. It really isn't. If anything, going above like 15mm is kind of overkill for DPS. Obviously, unless you're some sort of DPS junkie, it's really not worth like crying about. I mean, the one I'm running in this video is only about 10mm DPS. So, and it's performing perfectly fine, chewing through literally everything. And I do apologise for those people that came here thinking they're going to find some amazing strikers insight to strikers with an SMG. My personal opinion, it's mostly not worth it. You can get to within about 80 to 90% of the DPS that strikers would give you anyway. And then you can just add in some survivability, some CC, and yeah, actually have a more comfortable and viable build for the end game. It is a lot more sustainable and user friendly. Anyway, that just about does it for me. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health.